After England defeated the French at the Battle of Bremule, Normandy was back in King Henry's hands. But 1 year later, his good fortune turned to tragedy. In 1120, his son and heir William Adelin died in a shipwreck. The future of Henry I's kingdom was in jeopardy. Henry desperately needed a new heir. With no legitimate sons left alive, he broke with tradition and chose his daughter, Matilda. Henry forced his barons to swear an oath to accept Matilda as queen. But when the king died, they broke their promise. England would not be ruled by a woman. Matilda's cousin Stephen saw his chance and claimed the throne. The crisis moved to the capital. At Westminster Abbey, Stephen was crowned king, but Matilda wanted what was hers. She was also lining up powerful supporters who would fight Stephen for her right to rule. Their conflict engulfed England in civil war. Fighting raged throughout the land. In 1141, everything focused on one of the kingdom's most strategic cities, Lincoln. Matilda's allies had commandeered the castle. But King Stephen was determined to take it back. He besieged the castle. Stalemate. As dawn broke on February the 2nd, everything was about to change. Matilda's half-brother, Robert of Gloucester, raced to break the siege. As Robert's forces approached Lincoln, Stephen's army turned away from the castle to face them. Robert could win Matilda the crown, but only if his army could win the day. Robert of Gloucester's forces approached Lincoln. Their task, to liberate the castle from King Stephen's siege. While behind Lincoln's walls, troops loyal to Matilda held the castle for the Empress. First, Robert's forces would stage an ambush to prevent enemy reinforcements from joining with King Stephen's army. Robert's men concealed themselves in a sheltered grove and lay in wait for the enemy.
Courser is saddled, scouter is ready. Wider schul ichka. Ik ga weer vallen te val!
Wat ben je finished?
Iets sail the boat!
Robert defeated the first column of Stephen's reinforcements, but he knew more were on the way.
Ik doe zoals du hättest. Ich obey dein Herr, ich doe zoals du hättest.
Vendors! Is Anna near me?
Ich obey dein Herr.
Vendors! Is Anna near me?
With more of Stephen's reinforcements eliminated, Robert was steadily undermining the siege.
Ich doe zoals du hättest. Ich fortsätt in Hess. Ich fortsätt in Hess.
Each sail the boat! Ich habe gefunden the foe!
Ich schwöre es.
Robert's men decimated King Stephen's reinforcements and were poised to break the siege.
Ich obey dein Hess.
Continuing the push towards Lincoln, Robert sent in a large company of reinforcements to aid his vanguard. To further weaken the siege, Robert would need to cut off Stephen's supplies.
Vendors is Anna near
He
me?
targeted the nearby market town.
What would essa shouldn't be here?
Intended sewers they had. Glidande their horses.
Each sail the boat!
Send the men to the air of
Is it given they had Yahweh and Switha? Yes. He can't do it.
Each sail the boat!
Heriende Hestes nu. Foliende Hestes. Heriende Hestes nu.
Ich habe gefunden the foe! Vendors is Anna near me?
Sewers they had. Glory to your Caesar.
Rallying to Matilda's cause, a large group of knights arrived at Lincoln to bolster Robert's army. With the market town in ruins, King Stephen's supplies began to dwindle. Robert received word that Welsh troops under Matilda's banner were en route to join forces with him. But King Stephen had the roads to Lincoln heavily guarded, and the route was not without risk, even for the hardy Welshmen.
But mean a word.
Ich habe ihn! Na! Lefort et Ferende!
Making their way to Lincoln, Matilda's Welsh allies were ambushed by the king's soldiers. Robert's men would need to aid the Welsh if they wanted their help in breaking the siege. Joining forces on the road to Lincoln, Matilda's allied troops made for the castle to lift the siege.
At mina worde ferret. Ut readeth nu, Julius. Forth warde Freckes, mit Baldenes. Ich shall lede ja.
Dute is non burden. Ich live to hear it.
Ich shall lede ja. Ut readeth nu, Julius. Forth warde Freckes, mit Baldenes.
Andente to serve. Dute is non burden.
Robert's forces spotted a large detachment of Stephen's soldiers guarding the castle gates. If they hoped to liberate Lincoln, they would need to break the blockade and rout the army.
Ich liebe to hear it. Miss Dute is non burden.
Ich habe ihn found in the bow!
Andente to serve. Alles with
Robert's forces scattered the king's army, leaving the gates to the castle unguarded.
Forth warde Freckes, mit Baldenes. Ut readeth nu, Julius.
Robert's men finally united with Lincoln's garrison. They could now use the castle to strengthen their army.
Host it down.
To lift the siege, they needed to destroy the enemy camps surrounding the castle.
Where have steaders bayonet?
Get thee ready for Hesde. It is Sita for actor. He shall lay the young. Nu, tut readeth nu, tut
Freckes haken. Nu Hestes.
Get thee ready for
Boa is
Look for your beauty.
Fuste tul.
Certes.
Yahweh
It is Sita for
Fuse tulkes. Hestes cometh.
Jute.
War of
It
sir.
is Sita for actors. Fourth warde freckles. Mit baldenes. Yet at me no word. Fell.
What needeth they undone? Yare to done some worker.
Look for your beauty ready. He shall lay the young. At me no word. Fell. Certes. Ut readeth nu, Tulkes.
Fairness is enemy!
Mit baldenes. Alles with. Nu, Tulkes. He shall lay the young. It is Sita for at me no word.
Fairness is enemy!
Before the operation day, let it was done! Nu, Tulkes. Second young.
It shall be found in the foe!
On the Phoenicians, young! It's never to hear them! Greetings, in the sun! On the Phoenicians, young!
Matilda's forces struck hard, destroying one of King Stephen's siege camps.
Get thee ready for each liver to hear it.
The fiend has been
Look for your beauty ready, friend. Attente to serve. Before they are awaited, let them go. Weapons is ready! On fire! On the Phoenicians! Give it to the Hestes! Attente to serve! Greetings! In the Aventus! On the Phoenicians on the Twitter!
Fairness is enemy!
Attente to serve! In Hestes! All the Phoenicians young! Before they are let us go! Today is number 9!
King Stephen's army dwindled as Matilda's forces struck down another siege camp.
It's never to hear! Phoenicians, in the sun! Phoenicians stand in the on the Twitter! All the Phoenicians young!
It shall be found in the foe!
Phoenicians stand in the Certain! All the Phoenicians young!
The king's army was scattered, and those who didn't fall fled. King Stephen was spotted, shielded by his men. To end the siege, Matilda's forces needed to capture Stephen and rout his army.
It is Sita for actors, ut readeth nu, Tulkes. Fourth warde freckles, mit baldenes. He shall lay the young. At me no word, fell. Certain.
Hestes cometh ahwen meo sleepily on the stairs. Asteriad. Brachte, Arbeiter. Ich kenne dich, du not! Ich nehme du hier!
Matilda's men closed in and finally captured King Stephen. Matilda's forces had won the battle at Lincoln. But the fight for the crown was not over yet.
(1142).
A counterweight trebuchet was the king of all siege engines. A catapult capable of smashing down castle walls from great distances. At Warwick Castle in England, they've built a replica, one of the largest in the world. Originating in 7th century China, by the 13th century, trebuchets had evolved into devastatingly powerful weapons.
Such a simple design, but so effective.
It has several key features. A pivoted arm with a weight at one end, and a sling to hold the projectile at the other. To prime, the 6-ton weight is raised using tread wheels.
So this is one of the wheels, one of two that's attached to an axle, which would lift the counterweight, weighing 6 tons. It's based on muscle power alone. What's essential about launching a projectile as far as possible is making sure that this end of the arm is moving as fast as possible. So once that weight drops, it really sends this point of the arm moving at its highest velocity.
This was done by positioning the pivot close to the counterweight and by launching the projectile from a sling. When released, the sling whips round, vastly increasing the launch speed. Trebuchets were carefully aimed, like modern guns.
In order to weaken the castle walls or even breach them, you had to make sure that the projectiles hit the same spot every single time.
For each projectile to follow the same trajectory, they all had to be the same weight and shape. To achieve this, masons used a gauge.
Now I'm going to load this projectile into the sling. Oh, this one must weigh about 25 kilograms, but some projectiles can get up to 150 kilograms. That's the weight of 2 men.
Trebuchets were also used to throw burning tar, beehives, even dead bodies. anything to cause maximum distress to the enemy.
Did you hear that whoosh?
It was the counterweight trebuchet's lethal combination of power and accuracy that made it the ultimate medieval siege weapon. After England defeated the French at the Battle of Bremule, Normandy was back in King Henry's hands. But 1 year later, his good fortune turned to